In the U.S. right now, the median full-time worker makes around $60,000 a year. But according to the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis, the average American only saves about 5% of their income. And Federal Reserve data shows credit cards are charging over 21% interest. This is how so many people wake up at 30 with no savings, around $30,000 of student loans, which is the average for 25 to 34-year-olds, according to LendEdu's analysis, and rent taking a third or more of their paycheck. We tend to treat our 20s like a free trial of adulthood, a decade where money feels temporary, and we assume we'll just figure it all out later. But that's a dangerous assumption. Your 20s are not a free trial. They are the decade where a few specific purchases decide whether your 40-year-old self has options or obligations. Today, I'm going to walk you through 7 of these purchases: skills, investing, transportation, housing, health, debt, and lifestyle design that can tilt the math of your life from a 21% debt drag to a 7 to 10% wealth tailwind using real, current U.S. numbers. As you're listening, mentally pick which of these 7 categories you're already overspending on and see if the numbers back you up. We're going to go through 7 specific purchases in your 20s, one by one, so you can see exactly where your money should go if you want more freedom by 30 and 40. First, you need to buy something most people never think of as a purchase: an income engine that makes every other money decision easier. Your income engine is the collection of your marketable skills, your experience, and the tools that make you valuable in the workplace or as a business owner. It's the machine that generates your primary financial resource. To put this in perspective, let's look at the numbers. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the median full-time American worker earns about $1,150 to $1,165 per week. That's roughly $60,000 a year. This is our baseline. Your primary goal in your 20s should be to invest in the engine that pushes this number higher, because even small increases have a massive long-term impact. A 10% raise on $60,000 is an extra $6,000 a year. A 20% raise is $12,000. Over a couple of decades, even if you only save a modest portion of that increase, it can be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars in your investment accounts. This isn't just a nice to have. For most people, it's a necessity. According to the Bureau of Economic Analysis, Americans only saved about 5.4% of their income on average last year, and by December, it was down to around 4.3%. That means if you make $60,000, you might only be saving $3,000 a year. At that rate, building meaningful wealth feels impossible. This is why raising your income isn't about greed. It's one of the few realistic ways to create the financial breathing room you need to save, invest, and get ahead. So how do you do this? You create an income engine budget. I recommend dedicating 5 to 10% of your take-home pay in your 20s specifically to purchases that improve your earning power. On a $60,000 salary, your monthly take-home pay is typically around $3,500 to $3,900. 5% of that is about $175 to $195 a month. 10% is about $350 to $390. This money isn't. The key is that every dollar must be tied. Here's a simple rule to follow. Before you spend more on lifestyle upgrades, commit a fixed percent of your take-home pay to your income engine, to buying skills that can raise your income by at least that same percentage over the next few years. Let's make this real with a story. Meet Jordan, a 25-year-old customer support rep at a SaaS company in Austin, Texas. Jordan earns $50,000 a year, which is a bit below that $60,000 national median. After taxes, Jordan takes home roughly $3,000 a month. But Austin is expensive. Rent for a one-bedroom is about $1,700 a month. For context, most national rent reports put the median one-bedroom around $1,500 to $1,600 a month. So Jordan is already paying a little above that. Food and transportation cost another $600 combined. This leaves only about $700 a month for everything else. Student loan payments on a $28,000 balance. Fun. And whatever is left for savings. Like many Americans, Jordan is only saving around 5% of their income and feels completely stuck. Too broke to invest in skills while social media shows friends traveling and buying new things. Jordan's solution starts with a specific goal. Get to a $65,000 salary within 3 years by moving into a data analytics role at the same company. To do this, Jordan commits 5% of take-home pay, $150 a month, to an income engine budget. This money is carved out first. With that $150, Jordan enrolls in an online data analytics program for about $100 a month and uses the other $50 for software tools and a portfolio website. Over the next 18 months, Jordan builds a portfolio and applies internally. The new role pays $65,000. A 30% raise. Jordan's take-home pay jumps to around $3,700 a month. By keeping the same lifestyle, Jordan can now save and invest nearly $600 a month, more than double what was possible before, while still paying down student loans. If you invest just 5% of your take-home into skills that eventually raise your income by 20 or 30%, that's one of the highest return purchases you can make in your 20s. Far better than random lifestyle upgrades. Within 3 years, Jordan turned a small monthly budget into a $15,000 annual income boost. That's the power of buying yourself a better income engine. But building your income is only half the game. The next purchase decides whether that extra money actually sticks around and grows for you. Earning more is powerful, but only if part of that extra money actually buys you ownership in something that grows while you sleep. This is purchase number 2. Ownership in the market through automated investing, not chasing lottery tickets. For nearly a century, the U.S. stock market has been one of the most reliable wealth-building machines in history. Looking at data compiled by finance professors like Oswath Damodaran, the S&P 500, which represents 500 of the largest U.S. companies, has returned about 9.5 to 10% a year before inflation, or roughly 6.5 to 7% after inflation, over the last 90-plus years, assuming you reinvest dividends. That's not a guarantee for the future, but it's a powerful long-term benchmark for what your money can do when it's invested. Now, compare that potential 10% return with the cost of debt. According to the Federal Reserve, average credit card rates were over 21% at the end of 2024. So if you're hoping the market gives you 10% while your card is charging you 21%, that math does not work in your favor. It's like trying to run up an escalator that's moving down twice as fast. The goal in your 20s is to get on the right side of this math, to have your money earning that 7 to 10% tailwind instead of fighting a 21% headwind. So how much should you be investing? A great target is 10% of your gross income. For that median $60,000 salary, that's $6,000 a year, or $500 a month. If that feels too high, a starter goal of $300 a month is 6% of your gross pay. The easiest way to start is with your employer's 401k plan. Most U.S. employers that offer a 401k match throw in roughly 3% of your salary if you put in 6% yourself. This is often structured as a 50% match on the first 6% you contribute. Not capturing this match is like taking a voluntary 3% pay cut. It's the closest thing to free money you will ever get. Here's an action ladder. If 10% feels impossible, start by contributing enough to your 401k to get the full employer match. Then, set a calendar reminder to increase your contribution by 1 percentage point every 3 months until you reach your goal of 10 to 15%. And what should you invest in? For most people starting out, a simple low-cost S&P 500 index fund or a total U.S. stock market fund is a fantastic choice. It lets you own a tiny piece of hundreds of America's biggest companies all at once. This is a long-term strategy for building wealth, not a get-rich-quick scheme. Let's meet Aaliyah. She's a 27-year-old project coordinator in Chicago, earning $62,000 a year. Her take-home pay is about $3,700 a month. In Chicago, median rent for a one-bedroom is about $2,000 a month, so Aaliyah paying around that puts her roughly in line with the city average. After $400 in student loans and $250 for subscriptions and dining out, things are tight. Her employer offers a great 401k with a 50% match on the first 6% of pay, but she's only contributing 2%. About $100 a month. She's anxious about market ups and downs and feels like small amounts don't matter. But she's leaving a lot of free money on the table. Aaliyah does the math. 6% of her $62,000 salary is $3,720 a year, or $310 a month. If she contributes that much, her employer will add 3%. Another $1,860 a year, or $155 a month. So she decides to act. She immediately increases her $401,000 contribution to 6%. Her contribution goes up to $310 a month, and her employer now adds $155 for a total of $465 a month going into her retirement account. In a minute, I'll show you how even just $300 a month invested in a broad index fund starting in your mid-20s can be worth more than double the same amount starting in your mid-30s. To free up the extra cash, Aaliyah trims her dining and subscription budget. A few months later, she sets up an automatic transfer of another $200 a month into a low-cost S&P 500 index fund. By going from 2% to 10% total investing, she's now putting away about $665 a month. Assuming historical market returns, she's on track to have 6 figures invested by her mid-30s. Pause for 10 seconds and check. Are you at least getting your full 401k match right now? If not, write down "bump my contribution to the match" as your first action after this video. Second major purchase to get right in your 20s. How much of your future you're trading away for your car and commute. Transportation is a silent killer of wealth. Car payments, insurance, gas, parking, and maintenance can easily consume 10 to 20% of your income if you're not careful. The worst-case scenario is financing these costs with high-interest debt. As we've seen, Federal Reserve data shows average credit card rates over 21% at the end of 2024. That's the worst way to finance a car or repairs in your 20s. Using a credit card to cover a major car repair, or even worse, to finance the car itself, is a financial disaster waiting to happen. The interest payments alone will set you back for years. A simple concrete rule is to keep your total transportation costs, that's your car payment, insurance, gas, and an estimate for maintenance under 10 to 15% of your gross income. For someone earning that median $60,000 a year or $5,000 a month, that's a budget of $500 to $750 a month, all in. Going above this limit puts a major strain on your ability to invest and save. This often means making a conscious trade-off between your car and your housing. In some cities, you might pay slightly more in rent to live in a walkable neighborhood or near public transit. But you could save $300 to $500 a month by not needing a car at all. That entire amount can go straight to paying off debt or investing. Of course, in many parts of the U.S., a car is a necessity. The goal isn't to have no car, it's to have a sane car. That means a reliable used vehicle financed at a reasonable interest rate, not a brand new status symbol financed with high-interest debt that you can't truly afford. Every dollar you save here is a dollar you can put to work for your future. Let's look at Luis, a 24-year-old IT support tech in Atlanta. He earns $48,000 a year, so about $4,000 a month gross. Nationally, a one-bedroom runs about $1,500 to $1,600 a month. Luis is paying around $1,650 in Atlanta, so his rent is slightly above average on a below median salary. His transportation costs are another $550 a month for a nearly new sedan, which is almost 14% of his gross income. He lives in a spread-out city where a car is essential, and his friends pressure him to drive something nice. He occasionally uses a credit card for repairs, risking that 21% interest. He wants to invest, but there's nothing left. First, Luis runs the numbers. Take your total car cost, payment, gas, insurance, divide by your gross monthly income. If it's over 15%, that's your sign something needs to change. His is 13.75%, right on the edge. He decides to sell his car and buy a reliable, older, used sedan. This drops his total transportation costs to about $360 a month, now under 9% of his gross income. This one move frees up $190 every month. He splits it. $100 goes to paying down any high-interest debt, and $90 goes into a low-cost index fund automatically. He also commits to never putting car expenses on a credit card unless he can pay it off that same month. By choosing a less flashy car, Luis freed up almost $2,400 a year for his financial goals. Over a decade, that's a massive difference. Cutting your car costs can free up a couple $100 a month. But if your housing costs are wrong, they can swallow all of that and more. That's the next purchase. Third purchase that can quietly make or break your 20s. The roof over your head. Nothing has a bigger impact on your monthly budget than housing. Let's go back to our $60,000 salary, which is $5,000 a month before taxes. Across the U.S., median rent for a one-bedroom is roughly $1,500 to $1,600 a month. On that salary, that's around 30 to 33% of your gross income. A reasonable, though not ideal, amount. But location changes everything. In Chicago, it's closer to $2,000. In New York City, recent data puts a typical one-bedroom around $3,500 a month. On that same $60,000 salary, $3,500 a month is 70% of your gross income. At that level, you are not saving, you are not investing, you are just surviving. The rule of thumb for your 20s is to aim to keep your total housing costs, rent or mortgage plus basic utilities, at or below 25 to 30% of your gross income. If you knowingly go higher For a better location or nicer apartment, you have to be brutally honest with yourself and consciously cut spending somewhere else to maintain your investing rate. This is why, for many people in their 20s, the smartest financial moves are often the least glamorous. According to an analysis of census data, about 1/3 of Americans aged 18 to 34 live with their parents right now. It's not just you, it's the housing market. Living with parents or roommates isn't a sign of failure. It's a strategic decision that can dramatically lower your housing costs, allowing you to accelerate debt payoff and build an investment portfolio years ahead of your peers. It's also important to challenge the myth that you must buy a house in your 20s. With current home prices and interest rates, stretching for a mortgage can be a trap, crowding out all other financial goals. Renting while investing 10 to 15% of your income is often a much better path to wealth. Meet Emily, a 29-year-old nurse in New York City. She earns a good salary of $78,000 a year, or $6,500 a month, gross. But she's paying $3,500 a month for a small one-bedroom apartment, which is right around the city median. Let's run the check. Take your monthly rent, plus basic utilities, and divide by your gross monthly income. If you're over 30%, highlight that number. That's where your investing money is hiding. Emily's number is 54%. That's dangerously high. After all her other expenses, she has very little left for her student loans or savings. She feels stuck and guilty about the idea of getting roommates at 29. But the math is undeniable. She finds a room in a 3-bedroom apartment for $2,100 a month. This would bring her housing costs down to 32% of her gross income. She decides to make the move, reframing it as a